IC of the season with the new prizes is going to feel really good as we have our matchup. Lost Zone Giratina V-Star against Gardevoir EX. How do you feel about this matchup, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You still have the power of Sableye, Lost Mine to be able to pick apart Gardevoir's bench, but there is no Jirachi in Ciaran's deck. So that could come up big here. One of the big cards out of Paradox Rift to kind of stymie Sableye's overwhelming power of the format.
Indeed, Jirachi pretty key to stop that Sableye. I do feel like Gardevoir has been able to beat Lost Box based decks or Sableye before Jirachi existed, right? However, Sableye now has a new tool to play with, which is Counter Catcher. There's a really cool play that Giratina decks can do where they can go Counter Catcher a fresh Shining Arcana Gardevoir, place the 12 damage counters on it, and therefore you cannot attach enough energy through Psychic Embrace to attack or even retreat the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. So that is something that we could see this matchup in order to try and stall out Ciaran and make sure that you get 2 turns of Lost Mine without giving up a prize card, which can be pretty devastating at that point.
And both Angel and Ciaran are 8-1-2, so they are sitting at 26 match points. Typically in regionals, we've seen a lot of players, and it's come down to 35 is usually either the bubble or just in. Do you feel like we're going to kind of see that same match points? There's been a lot of ties as well.
There have been a lot of ties, and in terms of comparing the amount of players that we've had to the regionals that we've been seeing, we are on the, I feel like, average size in terms of 35 match points being safe enough. So I would imagine 35 would be safe, but in reality, like, it all depends on the ties. There's so many things that can change as we move along this round, and I'm pretty happy to see these 2 names. Ciaran has been making a name for himself for a long time now, and has been on a pretty consistent streak, and really modernizing that Chin Pao list, taking it to a top 32 World Championship finish, and now looking for that top 8, which I believe he got top 8 at the previous LAIC, so it would be really impressive to have that back-to-back. And then Angel, also a really good player from LATAM, played a lot during the online era, and now he's here showing that he can also do it with the cards.
Taking a look at the prize cards, 2 Paths of the Peak, that's going to be one of the big cards in the matchup for Angel there, and Ciaran didn't seem too bad for those prizes. Does have the Professor Turo scenario in the prize though.
Yeah, the Professor Turo could come into play as it's a way to heal, right? Any leftover damage that Sableye places, or if you attack with with Gardevoir EX, when there's no Giratina V-Star threat of getting return KO'd, you can essentially absorb a hit through that and then pick it up. You can also collapse Stadium in a way, so a lot's gonna come down to how well can Ciaran manage his bench and the damage or the targets that Sableye can have, and then also the disruption, which, as you very well mentioned, with 2 Paths to the Peaks being prized, is gonna be less detrimental for Ciaran. But we'll have to see. Sometimes 1 path is enough, right? You only need 1 path plus Roxanne to slow down opponents, and if Angel figures out that 2 of his paths are in the prize cards, he might choose to save them.
Angel starting off with a Battle VIP pass with a Sableye in the active spot. And his fun fact was he prized 4 Comfey in a game this weekend.
That is incredible. I don't think I've ever prized 4 of any card. Like, I don't recall doing that in 20 years of playing. Prizing 4 copies of a card you play, that's incredible.
That's worse odds than a shiny legendary
That
Pokemon.
is worse odds than a shiny legendary Pokemon. Yeah, we keep coming back to that. You know what's also pretty low odds? Starting Battle VIP Pass when you only play 3. And he'll only play 3 Battle VIP Pass in his list, which is generally very surprising to me.
Yeah, either it's the one with combination of Irida or Arven in those type of decks,
yeah,
or just the full 4. Interesting to see. Cutting corners a little bit, fitting some tech cards that you kind of want to see, and wow, starting 2 of them.
Starting 2 of those 3 Battle VIP Pass. Speaking of shiny Pokemon, this is the equivalent of a shiny Pokemon in the TCG. Now, yeah, I mean, having 1 copy in your deck when you play a direct search card for them can be pretty good. You can also maybe argue 2 so that if you don't prize 1 too often and you still have access to that, and then you want to maximize your chances otherwise with 4. But 3 feels like that awkward number, but we did see Cyrus Davis take down NAC with 3 battle VIP pass as well, so maybe there's something there, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of 4.
I mean, it's working out fine for Angel there. No way to get Comfey in the active spot, though. No energy, no switch cards, so no flower selectings to start the game off. And that's got to be good news for Ciaran there.
I also don't see any Chorus Experiment in Angel's hand, so despite the explosiveness of the double battle EAP pass, if he doesn't top deck something good next turn, we might see another pass, as Ciaran's deck probably not going to be offensive this turn or maybe even the next. Going to take this time to check his prizes and make sure he has a good enough setup, with Manaphy being one of the key cards, as with these Giratina decks, you never know whether they're playing 1, 2, or 3 water energies and how easy they can accomplish the water shuriken attack.
Yeah, I always like to refer back to Kyle Sablehouse saying hydrated or dehydrated Giratina. And this is a hydrated for sure.
Yep.
They pack their waters and ready for anything.
Indeed, and I feel like it's always good to at least play 1. That way you always keep your opponents second guessing themselves. Yeah, like you keep them on their toes, and they always dedicate that spot to the Manaphy if they can, and therefore their bench is not as ideal as they would like it to be. Because Manaphy is good in its own regard, but if you can have an extra Ralts, right, you'd rather do that, or an extra attacker, Cresselia, Mew for setup. Any of those usually tend to be preferred than Manaphy. Manaphy is a card that you feel like, well, I guess I have to, but you don't always want it there.
And Ciaran is playing a lot of extra Pokemon in this Gardevoir list. Has the Screamtail, has the Cresselia, but also has the Zacian V and a Lumineon V.
Indeed, so really maximizing his options and also the consistency of the deck, right? In terms of supporters, he's only running 1 copy of Avery, only running 1 copy of Worker, 1 copy of Research, so choosing to have that variety. And if you want to play the Avery when it's going to be its most destructive, right, there's a very specific timing for it, and with Lumineon, you can guarantee it. But bench space is at a premium, right? You can't have Lumineon, you can't have Manaphy, you can't have Greninja. Then where do you fit your Ralts?
And speaking of Avery, Ciaran has that Avery here, and Angel is forced to get rid of a Comfey. So already down a Comfey without even using flower selecting here.
Very bad top deck for Angel, though. A Giratina V-Star, still no energy, still no switch cards, still no escape ropes, no nothing. Angel is running a little bit on the lower side, 13 energy as opposed to 14, which is usually the standard we see with Giratina V-Star decks. 5 switching out, not counting the jet energies in terms of trainers, so unfortunately just a bench Giratina and pass for Angel. I would have loved to see him play the Nest Ball he's holding in his hand, now that the Avery is gone as well, to just bench a double Giratina or that extra Comfey that he lost off the Avery, just to thin your deck that 1 extra card. You never know how much 1 little bit of extra percentage can help you really get out of this horrible situation that he's in.
Ciaran looking through the deck with this Nest Ball, opts to grab the Cresselia. You saw him pull to the Professor Research to the front, I think maybe in prep of an Ultra Ball for Lumineon V, but Lumineon is prized. So it's looking like he might be forced to Iono here to try to get that Mirage Step off. Just because the hand does not have another energy, so no way to get out of the active spot. Oh no, Lumineon's in the hand.
Yeah, Lumineon's in the hand indeed. I didn't want to skip over you. Lumineon's there, does have the Research, does have the Mirage Step Kirlia ready to go. So looking for an energy to be able to retreat the Greninja, but also hoping to not draw any Kirlias. If you draw 1, you're like fine, right? Because then you already have a Ralts, you can evolve, and if you can bitch on a Ralts, the end result is the same. But you're actually hoping to not draw Kirlias here.
7 cards off this Professor's Research. I don't see any Kirlia.
No Kirlia and plenty of energy, yeah. Now the next debate is, do you concealed cards, get extra resources into your hand, and risk drawing the Cresselia, the other Kirlias, or do you take a chill for a turn and then go big with
I like
draw?
waiting.
I like waiting too, yeah.
Get those guaranteed Kirlia in play. You're only able to get 2 with the bench space here, but I think that's all that was in there.
Yeah, 1 Kirlia was indeed prized, so almost ideal setup. And if you get to this point as Guardy, and your opponent, your Lost Box opponent, is not able to get even a single card in the Lost Zone, you're feeling really, really good about this. Finally an energy, though.
Now here's the debate, though. Do you conceal cards with the energy to try to find some more, or just retreat and use your one flower selecting? You see the same amount of cards, but you get more cards with the concealed cards.
You get to keep more cards with the concealed cards, but you also get to advance your Lost Zone with the Comfey. So I would favor the Comfey just a little bit more, as if you use concealed cards and you get 2 non-playable cards, no more energy, no more switching cards, no call risk, then you're still at 0. And at the end of the day, you really need to get cards into your Lost Zone for this deck to work. Unfortunately for Angel, though, Nest Ball and Jet Energy, not super useful.
I think with Jet Energies as well, it might be a little better option to conceal cards the water away, and then drawing the Jet Energy equals 2 flower selecting, but able to find a switch card off of that concealed card. So with 2 flower selectings down, able to get a couple cards in the Lost Zone, but still nothing going on Angel's side of the board.
Oh, choosing to also keep the Boss's Orders in his hand, the only playable supporter that he had, but Ciaran sitting very happy here. When you're up against Lost Box, you always assume you're going to be down 1 or 2 prizes before you're even attacking. Now, the one thing about Ciaran's bench, though, is there's no space for mana fee. So if Angel at some point was able to get like a crazy turn here going and was able to snipe 2 Kirlias with Radiant Greninja, that could allow him to make a sort of comeback. And I guess it's early to speak of a comeback when both players are at 6 and 6 prizes, but based on how the rhythm of the matchup tends to go, Ciaran would have fully expected to be down at least 1 prize card by this point.
Ultra Ball here discarding Scream Tail and a Waltz. Most likely going to search for a Gardevoir here. Able to evolve that active, and that way you just get more draw power. Maybe hit a couple energies off that Shining Arcana.
Maybe hit. That would be pretty lucky, I would say, but there's always a chance. I've definitely pulled that off myself. Like, you use Shining Arcana with 0 expectations, and then you're just like, oh, well, here we go.
Now, opting to evolve the Refinement Kirlia on the bench.
I like that. I feel like we're going to see a Gardevoir EX in the active spot. Attacking with Gardevoir EX this turn feels really, really safe. Your opponent has 2 cards in the Lost Zone. Will only have 1 Comfey in play if you knock this out. So in order for them to get to 7 cards and threaten you with a Giratina V-Star attack, probably not going to happen. Almost 0 chance of that happening, as we see that Gardevoir EX attacking. And with only 2 damage counters, even if they hit you for 280 damage, you get to survive with 10 HP left, and then you get to Professor Turo or Collapse Stadium. Both cards are in the prize cards, however, but Ciaran, with Angel's super slow start, feeling pretty good here.
Yeah, even using that reversal energy, saying, yeah, I'm going to be up in prizes, at least 2 of them by next turn. So this isn't really going to do me much good. Might as well get out of the way, use the energy. And Iono is the draw here, I believe, for Angel. Maybe it was the Comfey, but
finally finds a Walrus Experiment, so we'll be able to get to 5. Like I said, probably 0 chance of getting to 7, and this is sometimes a problem with Colress. You find 5 really good cards, therefore, what do you actually get rid of? The counter catcher is important for later in the game. You want to follow Colress to this one you just had, and Mirage Gates is what you're going to use to power up that Giratina V-Star.
Nest Ball was the easy choice there.
Yep, Nest Ball was the easy choice, but this decision, I feel like I would lean towards the Mirage Gate. The other big cards are very important, and I think realistically, if Angel continues to fall far behind, the Roxanne plus Sableye plus a Path to a Peak right here could be the most important thing to work for him. So if he's going to make any sort of comeback, despite this game still being in the early stages, that's probably how he's going to be able to accomplish it.
And still no switch outs here, and that is just due to the fact that there's only 5 in the entire deck to go along with Jet Energy. No energy to attach for the turn, and this has been a start that Angel has not wanted to see. This is almost like present for Comfey. You're just not even really able to flower select it.
Indeed. Yeah, I think one small issue that Ciaran could face eventually in this matchup is whenever the Giratina V-Star ends up attacking, because Ciaran will be ahead in prize cards, getting enough energy to knock out that Giratina V-Star with your ideal attacker, which is Shining Arcana Gardevoir, will not be as simple, right? Getting 8 energies when you don't have access to reversal energy can sometimes be a little tricky. There is the possibility of Screamtail with the Luxurious. No, there's no Luxurious.
Oh wow, okay.
Cave in the list, so yeah, getting to a big enough number is very reliant on the reversal energy, which right now Ciaran cannot access. So getting a manual attachment on the Gardevoir could actually be very, very important, just so that you're able to guarantee you get to that 300 damage threshold.
Now Fog Crystal here from Ciaran, able to grab a Psychic Energy, and Arnie has used Refinement and Shining Arcana for the turn.
Shining Arcana for a few extra cards, Rain Greninja as well for extra draw. Interesting to see how Ciaran is left-handed, I believe. That's why we see the decks in that spot. Like, I was a little confused right there by what was happening, but yeah, I'm glad he's able to adapt that way in the stream table.
Listen, Pablo, left-handed people are people too.
Of course, I'm very happy. I'm very happy that, because I feel like we've had instances where
very awkward to play.
Yeah, where it's awkward, and like the prizes sometimes like are in difficult spots or not the usual spots, and so it's very nice to see this fluidity, between both players.
Ultra Ball discarding Manaphy and the Ralts. Might as well. This has not been a setup for Radiant Greninja and its Moonlight Shuriken, so by the time that even gets ready to go, you're probably going to have an entire bench full of just Gardevoir.
Yeah, now Ciaran, of course, going to be ahead by an extra prize card, making sure that, I mean, now the Manaphy is no longer important, I want to say, because there aren't actually 2 targets for Radiant Greninja, which is pretty good. Like I mentioned, yeah, you don't want to bench Manaphy if you don't need to, and now that all the Pokemon have so much HP, there's definitely no point to the Manaphy.
This is the last Comfey for Angel here without the use of a Super Rod. 2 have been knocked out, and then an Avery discarded the other one turn 1.
Just did not working.
Angel has the Colress's Experiment here to start things off, and again, just looking at 5 great cards here. Not really wanting to get rid of much of any of them. Having to get rid of Colress's Experiment and Iono.
Yeah, it's not nice when you get all these useful cards into the Lost Zone, but I really think Angel's best opportunity is to be able to bring one of the Shiny Arcanas, Gardevoir, on the bench with that Counter Catcher. Ciaran does play copies of Counter Catcher as well, 2 of them in fact, same as Angel, but it's only Angel that's going to be the one to use them this game.
With that Flower selecting, there's now 8 in the Lost Zone. Not going to be enough for that Lost Mine, and might have to settle for something like that Cramorant or just attacking with the Giratina V-Star. But again, if you're attacking with Giratina, you're losing a lot of energies.
You are losing a lot of energies. However, I do like this. I mean, Angel doesn't know this, but he has to expect that there's some sort of Collapse Stadium or Turo in the list. Sometimes there's only one of those. Usually there's always Collapse Stadium. But fortunately for Ciaran, I believe they're still in the prize cards. Therefore, that Gardevoir EX sitting at 10 HP could also be a target for Counter Catcher when it eventually retreats, or sets up a Sableye play very, very nicely.
Well, it looks like with the double Mirage Gate here, Radiant Greninja is getting powered up, but only having 1 really good target in that Kirlia on the bench. It's going to be forced to put 90 on something else, maybe that Lumineon, maybe a Gardevoir.
Eyeing up the Path to a Peak in Angel's hand, eyeing up the Counter Catcher as well, so I'll be interested to see if he decides to go with those or decides to keep them for next turn. Now, important to check your opponent's outs, your opponent discards, how many energy are available still to see the effectiveness of the Counter Catcher. I would really want him to save that for a Roxanne play, and with 2 Path to the Peaks priced as well, at least save the Path to a Peak.
Well, there is the Counter Catcher on the Gardevoir. Brings it to the active. No energy there, and I think we're going to probably see a Path to the Peak here. right before the Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah, there's a path to a peak, so if you knock out the Kirlia, then you might be able to access the other one, but if Ciaran immediately counters this, I don't think Angel's Roxanne will be as effective as he would like it to be.
Yeah, and there's already a worker in the hand for Ciaran, that powerful supporter, able to discard a stadium and then draw 3 cards.
Yep, I really like those 2 attacks, those 2 targets, because the Gardevoir now cannot get enough energy attached in order to attack super easily, right? And if you do attach 2 energies plus the 1 for turn, then that leaves it in prime Sableye territory. But I don't know what Angel can pull off here. If that path to peak gets countered, Roxanne will just not be as effective as he would like it to be. There's an Iono though.
The 1 prize card he pulled, Path to the Peak.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Fantastic then.
So having access to Roxanne and Path to the Peak next turn, as long as there's not something like an Iono from Ciaran here, could be very beneficial in trying to get Angel back in this game.
Yeah, did find that energy from the Shining Arcana, which is fantastic, as it will allow him to potentially retreat or attack, but by doing less self-damage. Right now, it's all about Ciaran conserving the least amount of damage possible on his side of the field to make Sableye the least effective and try and somehow not or get rid of that Luminion from the board, which I believe he might be grabbing the Collapse Stadium in this upcoming turn.
Artisan will be the stadium choice to bump that Path to the Peak, so now rule box abilities are available to Ciaran again, and we see that Cresselia being benched with its Moonglow reverse. This has been an all-star in Gardevoir's time against Lost Zone Box.
Yeah, we finally see the Iono as well, which paired with the Cresselia, probably targeting down this Sableye or even the Comfey, as Angel is still at 8 cards in the Lost Zone. If you knock out the Comfey, you're saying, Angel, either you call res or you're not going to be able to use Sableye next turn. So both of those potential targets, you also get to heal your Gardevoir a little bit and take it out of range of Sableye as much as possible. So the Cresselia, a very powerful card here.
Now 4 cards off the Iono for Ciaran, 5 for Angel. Attached for the turn on that Gardevoir in the axe spot, so now we can see retreat.
Yep, the retreat with no self-damage. That's pretty big. You also see a little bit of deck thinning by Ciaran. Very important to do. And one thing that I want to note as well is we're 20 minutes into this round.
Yep.
Yeah? And we're still at 4 and 5 prizes each. So Angel will need to pull off a really big comeback here, as if we get a similar game 2, I don't think we're seeing a game 3, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult to finish 3 full games in this matchup, especially with how things have gone so slow for both of these players in the early game. Now, there's a couple extra energy Psychic Embrace onto that Gardevoir on the bench, so now an attacker is lined up just in case another Path to the Peak comes down.
Yeah, 2 attackers even, with the Gardevoir and the Shining Arcana Gardevoir both ready. Having this energy, this extra energy without the damage on the Shining Arcana Gardevoir also means that Ciaran will have an easier time knocking out a full HP Giratina Beastar as well, which is pretty important. So the Cresselia having that double purpose. You get a prize card, but you also get to heal the damage from a preemptively attached energy, and therefore you're now more likely to be able to pull off a Giratina Beastar knockout. And taking down the Comfey means getting to 10 cards into Lost Zone could be very tricky for Angel now.
Now Ciaran did find that Collapse Stadium from the prize cards, so has the technology to be able to just get rid of a heavily damaged Gardevoir EX or that Luminion V that's sitting on the bench that's always a liability. Gonna have to try to find it again though, but there's no Roxanne in the hand. It's just on the bottom of the deck thanks to that Iono last turn.
Yeah, the second copy of Iono and the Roxanne at the bottom of the deck. 1 Comfey available for Angel, but 1 Comfey gets us to 9. So lead with the concealed cards, does find that path to a peak though.
Now one thing I would have loved to see is the use of the Artisan just to shuffle the deck, because you're trying to find that Roxanne path combo yet again. Was able to find the path to the peak, but has the escape rope here to bring up either the Cramorant or the Comfey, depending on what Ciaran decides.
The Roxanne Path combo is definitely less effective if you're not using Sableye, which even with this flower selecting, Anthill is still one card short, and this is where this little bit of extra damage could be less than ideal for Ciaran. He preemptively powered up his Pokemon. However, now that Gardevoir is in prime range for this Cramorant, so that could be something that Ciaran starts to regret a little bit for doing so preemptively.
Mirage Gate here for Angel is eyeing down just a Psychic Energy in the deck. No other basic energy to combo with that. This is the 4th Mirage Gate, I believe. 1 in the Lost Zone, 2 were played the last couple turns. So no more energy acceleration here. Opts to put it on the Radiant Greninja instead of that Giratina V-Star.
Through this Comfey, we're going to get to 9 cards in the Lost Zone, but a big problem for Anthill is that the Cresselia is still very much alive. And that means if this Cresselia takes down the Comfey once again, how can Anthill possibly get to 10 cards in the Lost Zone without using Colress? And if you're using Colress, then there's no Roxanne path available or Iono path available until a turn afterwards. And with Ciaran going down to 2 prizes in, a boss KO could finish the game.
Moonlight Shuriken does take out that Gardevoir on the bench and 90 damage on the active Gardevoir, so just 10 HP left, but it is fully powered up to take a knockout on something like that Radiant Greninja, and still has the option to retreat and Moonglow reverse like you were saying. No Path to the Peak in play, so it's gonna have to navigate these last couple turns here.
And still things are very heavily in favor of Ciaran. Has pretty much ideal board. Would love to see a Ralts benched. Not this turn though, probably next, because if you bench a Ralts, you're opening up yourself for 2 prizes, and I guess that's what we might see. So now there are 2 prizes easily attainable by Anthill, but if Ciaran uses the Cresselia to eliminate the Comfey, then I believe that would be all 4 Comfeys in the discard pile for Anthill. How do you get to that 10th card? There's no Lost Vacuum or anything like that to get to 10 without using Comfey.
Yeah, the Lost Vacuum card we usually see in those kind of turbo versions of Lost Box, or just most Lost Box in general. It really helps boost your advantage in turn 2, turn 3 to get to those numbers that you need. Here we see a few Psychic Embraces, 1 on the active Cresselia, 1 on the Ralts that was just benched, and 1 on that Gardevoir EX. So now able to move 80 damage counters, or 8 damage counters to take a knockout on something like that Sableye or Comfey, like you were saying.
All those energies stacked to this Gardevoir EX could also be problematic in case you have to deal with a late game Giratina V-Star at some point. But Cresselia, I really think we're going to see a Comfey target here with that extra energy, which I'm not sure I agree once again, because now the Cresselia is in range of the Cramorant. So those preemptive energy attachments, which are sometimes very justified, I think are opening up a few possibilities for Anthill that he would rather not allow him to have.
And it looks like Ciaran is eyeing down, taking a knockout on that Sableye on the bench, fearing Lost Mine, but this is where I like looking at your opponent's resources, seeing what they have left, and seeing that would be the last Comfey, and not really much advantage in trying to play a Colress when you need to play something like a Roxanne, or a Passa's Orders even.
Now, no second Sableye available for Anthill, though. It might be stuck.
It's in the hand.
Oh, it's in the hand. There you go. Never mind. Second Sableye available.
We each get 1.
It's going to be much easier to find a second Sableye for Lost Box decks than a 5th Comfey, right? Because that will require Super Rod. So I'm not sure I'm too happy. There is no Psychic Energy left in Anthill's hand to be able to utilize Sableye just now, but if you don't have this Comfey, then you can't even get to 10 cards.
Flower selecting Giratina V-Star goes to Lost Zone. Now there's 10, but no way, like you were saying, to use that Lost Mine with Sableye. No Psychic Energy to use Star Requiem with something with that counter catcher. Just no supporters in general other than a Boss's Orders. Concealed cards, the Jet Energy away. Finds another Jet and Roxanne.
There we go. Part of the combo. Now we have counter catcher. We have Switch card, we have the Sableye, and we have the Path to a Peak. We are just missing the Psychic. I don't recall seeing one in the deck.
There's no Psychic in the deck. There's just a Super Rod. So even if Angel draws the Super Rod, he won't be able to search out the Psychic because all 4 Mirage Gate are gone.
Okay, you can still take a chill turn though. Like, you can still counter something like the Greninja or even the Shining Arcana Carnivore perhaps. You can even take a knockout on the active with your Cramorant and do the Roxanne play as well with the path, as I think that's what we're gonna see.
This is going to be a big swing turn for Angel if it sticks. Roxanne Path, such a good combo. Ciaran does have 2 outs to this Path to the Peak still, or 3 outs of the Worker, Lost Vacuum, and the Collapse Stadium left.
Now, one big problem for Angel is certainly that this Gardevoir EX right here is already preemptively powered up, right? That's going to be Ciaran's only attacker if he's not able to find another Stadium card. And because Angel can't use Sableye this turn to get 2 prize cards, such as the Gardevoir on the bench and the Ralt, even if you V-Star knock out the Gardevoir EX with your Giratina the turn after, that's not going to be enough. But if you're going to make a comeback, this is definitely the way to do it, as we do find the Super Rod to put back 3 Psychic Energies.
We've missed you. Let's go back in the deck.
Now, also has the follow-up Iono, so not the ideal turn for Angel, but the second best choice. And now Ciaran's going to have to rely big time on the Shining Arcana. Very smartly held on to the Collapse Stadium last turn, which he was tempted to play. But as long as he can find that, which is not at the bottom of the deck either, because the cards did get shuffled due to Roxanne, we might be... Oh, and found the Worker. Wow, and the Lost Vacuum. All right.
Shining Arcana here. Do we find the Collapse Stadium as well? Just the full gambit?
That would actually be really bad for Ciaran, as I think we're going to have an Iono coming up next turn for Angel, so that would be less than ideal for him if he finds it off this Worker as well. Or it chooses not to, all right.
No, Ultra Ball will go in the Lost Zone, but I believe this should be game here. Boss's Orders brings up that Giratina V. You can retreat, attach all the energies of the Zacian V, take the knockout, and Ciaran Farah goes up 1-0 in round 12 here.
Finding all the right combination of cards off of that Roxanne to 2, along with the Shining Arcana. So in a world of Sableye had been able to KO that Shining Arcana, maybe we might have seen something different, right? But with no Psychic Energy available in the deck, it was quite literally impossible, as I feel like we were out of Mirage Gates at that point.
Yeah, it's an awkward start after that double battle VIP pass from Angel. Ciaran has that Avery to get rid of a Comfey, and then just decides, yeah, I'm going to go all in Mirage Step after that Professor's Research. And just the order of discards for Angel, unable to really find much. Finally found a Colress's Experiment, but it was a few turns too late in seeing just 5 beautiful cards that you don't want to get rid of. Meanwhile, Ciaran putting in work with an early Gardevoir EX, taking a couple prizes on Comfey, and just really slowing down the setup from this Lost Zone Giratina.
Very slow start for Angel, which ended up being costly, but he made the best out of it, right? He almost got close to a game-winning situation. Probably still needed 2 turns to go where Ciaran would have whiffed a little bit, but he made all the right moves. And I guess when he knew he had 0 hope left, that's when he conceded. I don't know if you want to concede a little bit earlier when things are just not looking great, when you're definitely not attacking with Sableye that previous turn. Perhaps save a couple extra minutes as well, but now we see Angel choosing to go first and playing really, really fast.
And this start is already so much better. Getting rid of a Colress's Experiment off of that Flower Selecting, already having one in hand, but Jet Energy will allow this Comfey to Flower Selecting yet again. Tying down a Mirage Gate Boss's Orders, though. Gets rid of maybe the Mirage Gate? No, goes with the Boss's Orders. So 2 supporters in the Lost Zone now, but has the 3rd Comfey. This is one of my favorite combos in any Lost Zone deck that plays Jet Energy. Just 1 Jet Energy turns into 3 Flower Selectings.
Indeed, that always feels fantastic. However, what doesn't feel fantastic are 3 supporters in the Lost Zone on your first turn. You're playing 9 total, and a 3rd of them are already in the Lost Zone. And if you see your opponent Lost Zone a Colress on turn 1, that's usually a good indicator that they're already holding one of those. So that makes an Iono even better. One call res in the lost zone, the other at the bottom of the deck. Your opponent being able to call res, not super likely at that point.
And here we see Ultra Ball for Luminion. Go ahead and grab that Iono. A little bit of shortcutting here, but Luminous Sign able to do just that. And it's even worse than you were saying, Pablo. There's one colorless experiment in the lost zone, one in the prize cards, and two in the hand. That means both the colorless experiment that are left for Angel are going to be going to the bottom of the deck.
Dang, that's definitely going to be really, really bad. I saw one. I did not catch the second one.
It was that last flower selecting with the Iono. He was like, I have to take the colorless experiment.
There's the Iono getting played, so it's going to be immediate nest balls to shuffle up the deck, which is great. And Angel did get 3 cards in the lost zone immediately, right? So at least we're going to see some Cramorant aggression. And if Manaphy's the Pokemon that gets knocked out, that's going to be very important, because that makes a Radiant Greninja a much bigger threat in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, it forces Ciaran to find the Super Rods early and try to get that Manaphy back in the deck if possible. But able to find a Ralts and a Level Ball off this Iono. It was kind of a little awkward Iono, not having any Ralts available before it. Ciaran able to at least come out on top a little bit.
And enough of a fresh 6 new cards. You have so many outs to finding those routes, which I think is important. But this Cramorant KO onto the Manaphy could be really big in dictating the next few turns, right? Angel, with no colors available, this turn most likely will be able to still get quite a few cards in Lost Zone, will be able to get close to 7, so that this turn we take down the Manaphy, and that's when Radiant Greninja can have a party.
Am I invited to the party?
Yes, you are, Jeremy. Okay. You are a VIP guest of honor at the party.
Nice. That's my prediction coming in clutch. Flower selecting, getting rid of a path to the peak. That's also pretty important, just with a path being prized. And another flower selecting, getting rid of a Mirage Gate.
Difficult choices for Angel here, but with the cards that he has kept so far in his hand, I do believe he's eyeing up the Greninja play. Is really digging for that Colruyt, but another Mirage Gate found at the top.
Having to get rid of Jet Energy here. Not really having a switch out. He's going to have to attach to the active to retreat. Maybe concealed cards. Have we seen that yet?
We have not seen concealed cards. And yeah, I was not a fan of that last switch card into the Comfey for another Flower Select, because now pulling off the Greninja play does have 2 Mirage Gates in hand, but utilizing both when you've already lost on 1 feels really, really awkward.
Iono here from Ciaran yet again. Brand new hand of 5 for Angel, hand of 6 for Ciaran. Having that Mirage Step in the active spot is pretty stellar though, but do we see a Psychic Energy? We do.
We do see Psychic Energy. We also see Ultra Ball and Super Rod, so that Manaphy that is sleeping in the discard pile could actually come back into the match this turn. That would mean 1 less Kirlian play from the Mirage Step, but when Greninja is such a looming threat, I think you might be forced to.
Well, it seemed like Ciaran thinks
disagrees,
otherwise.
Yeah, Ciaran disagrees.
And I think if you get the full 3 Kirlia here, it's definitely appealing.
Yep.
And Angel has gone through a couple of water energies. Those Mirage Gates that were all in hand are at the bottom of the deck now.
So Ciaran doesn't know it, but his Ionos have been extra effective. 1 Colruyt has finally been found and played, but no shuffling of the deck has occurred or will be occurring in the nearby future. Therefore, it's going to be really difficult for Angel to pull off the Greninja play. And like, this would be the prime opportunity to do so. Being able to take down 2 of these Kirlias would be really, really ideal. But even if you draw a Nest Ball, you're still not shuffling the deck because your bench is full. And now, what an awkward choice.
Switch card the Cramorant to the bench and sees a Water Energy Super Rod. That's just another awkward flower selecting here from Angel.
Yeah, the flowers being given to Angel have not been very pretty, I want to say.
Wow. Wow.
All right, so
attached to the active, retreat, just like the normal way you usually do. Path to the peak, and Cramorant will spit innocently yet again to take a knockout. Angel down to 4 prize cards now.
Both players playing at a very good pace. Angel with that urgency to try and win this game, but he's down so many resources, Jeremy. I don't know how easily he can pull this off, whilst Ciaran is down to prizes, right? Which is what you normally expect with Cardi. Now you have a full bench of Refinement Kirlias, you have your active Ralts, probably becoming a Gardevoir EX to then retreat, or even the Shiny Arcana Gardevoir. You have the Cresselia option as well, potentially to start demolishing Angel's bench, and Cramorant not really threatening you. So I think even though Ciaran is down 2 prizes, his chances of winning are still very good, and all the resources gone for Angel could make it very difficult for him to be able to pull off this late game.
Off the first refinement, Lost Vacuum was found for Ciaran, so that's a way to get rid of that Path to the Peak and utilize Gardevoir EX if he wants to. Going to start with another refinement though here, why not? Just get yourself more options for this Ultra Ball discard.
Do you see the Professor Turo? Probably a card you want to keep somewhat available in the near future. Now, Shiny Arcana will provide an extra couple of cards in order to... I think Ciaran has a difficult time right now figuring out what to discard off the Ultra Ball and what to Lost Zone off the Lost Vacuum. And once you Lost Zone the Path to the Peak, you're also putting your opponent at 10 cards in the Lost Zone as well. That's one of the benefits of your stadium getting Lost Zone. It's like, sure, it got countered, but I also benefit from it. So you getting your opponent to utilize or to activate their Sableye, that's usually not what you want to do.
Nestball does find the Cresselia, so I think we know the route that Ciaran is attempting to take here. Level Ball discarded to that third refinement. What do we find here? Zacian and another Waltz. It's not really going to help.
Still no easy decision for Ciaran on what to discard or Lost Zone. Hasn't played a supporter yet, but the only option is Iono realistically, and that's going to be useful after, right? It doesn't help him with his current decision. You can also risk the Iono and then hope you draw a Stadium, but if you don't, then you're not attacking. So I don't think that's a risk you can actually take. So difficult turn for Ciaran, where speaking of resources, yeah, this is one where he loses a lot, and his bench will likely still contain a Kirlia and a Ralts, which are ripe for picking for Moonlight Shuriken.
And now gets rid of the Professor Turo scenario with the Lost Vacuum. Does that mean we're going to see the Iono this turn?
I would imagine so, yeah. On with a Suprod. Wonder if the Manaphy is getting put back. I feel like it's a little too late for it.
Yeah, and I think Ciaran agrees. Opting to shuffle back that Kirlia, Zacian, and Ralts. Has the Pal Pad to put 2 Ionos back as well. Now the deck is fully stocked. Iono here. Gonna draw Ciaran a brand new hand of 6, put Angel down to 4.
And he'll not getting to keep any of their resources after he chooses his flowers. They're getting taken away. Now, this also, I don't think gets Angel any closer to the Mirage Case because they're still at the bottom. The deck was not shuffled the previous turn. However, we do find one and a Colress and a Nestball for Sableye, so something was going to happen. This was the way to go.
Second Shining Arcana found for Ciaran here, so a couple more cards added to the hand. Finds a counter catcher.
That second Shining Arcana is actually huge because now there's no more targets. There's no 2 targets available for Radiant Greninja. Now you can only take down 1. And if you use Sableye, you're also potentially only targeting down the Cresselia and going boss KO on the Gardevoir EX. Maybe that's Angel's best and ideal play because Ciaran's only response in order to try and get a one-shot would be to rare candy the Ralts, which is easier said than done, right?
Yeah, especially with the hand that Ciaran's staring at right now. Does use Moonglow Reverse to take the knockout on the Comfey on the bench. And that opens up Nestball for Angel here.
Probably going to see a Sableye off of this, if there is any.
There is one in there.
There is. Yep, there we go. He skipped over it so quickly. I was like, wait, did I see that wrong?
Sableye does hit the bench. There's a couple Psychic Energies still left in the deck, so Mirage Gate could come in handy for Angel. You still have that Colossus Experiment. Going to start things off with that first. Might as well get as much information as possible Looking like Giratina V-Star and Battle VIP Pass going to Lost Army.
Yeah, finally a slightly kinder decision for Angel. However, the decision on what to do this turn is definitely not kind. You cannot expose your Giratina V-Star to take a single prize card knockout on the Cresselia, especially when you don't have a backup Giratina V-Star. You also cannot afford to not attack this turn. You have to at least damage the Cresselia with your active Cramorant, but then that feels pretty underwhelming. That probably means the Cresselia is going to be used once again. And if you commit your Sableye to knocking out the Cresselia, there's no damage left over on your opponent's side of the board to be able to continue or get to that multiple prize turn.
After the Super Rod, Mirage Gate is going to find an energy to retreat the active, and then maybe a Psychic or Grass to go on top or on that Giratina V-Star.
I could see that happening for sure. That Shining Arcana, that Shining Arcana that was found after the Iono was really big. Otherwise, Angel had a pretty nice 2-prize turn set up with the Greninja potentially, and then a boss KO with the V-Star on the Gardevoir. And Ciaran would have had a lot more urgency in this upcoming turn to be able to deal with that Giratina V-Star. However, as it stands, 1-for-1 with Sableye, that's always a fine choice.
And now this is a big Lost Mine play. Do you take the knockout on the active, or do you knock out the Ralts and spread a little bit of damage? If you do, Moonglow Reverse is going to heal off at least 20.
I feel like doing anything other than KOing the Cresselia is not to my liking. Obviously, Angel differs from that and chooses to go after the Gardevoir. However, if you leave the Cresselia alive, then that means you essentially use Lost Mine for 10 damage counters instead of 12 if Ciaran decides to use it again, and that's never a good thing, right? Sometimes the 12 damage counters feel like it's not enough. 10 certainly isn't, and with the preemptive energy attached to the Gardevoir, there isn't a play where you can go counter catcher a Gardevoir and try to trap that with the Roxanne and not let it retreat. So difficult decision. We'll see what Angel has planned here by putting those 12 damage counters on the Shining Arcana Gardevoir.
Shining Arcana is going to attach a Psychic Energy to the Lumineon V here, and then collapse Stadium to get rid of it, put it in the discard. So
very nice. Not a straightforward decision for Angel. Those Comfies, of course, act as a way to advance your deck, see more cards, and you get rid of one. Cresselia snipes the other potentially. That could be problematic. And now we see an Avery as well.
This means Cramorant's going to the discard along with that Comfey. 3 cards to Ciaran's hand. Has a Kirlia to evolve that Ralts. It also has Rare Candy Ultra Ball.
Choosing not to evolve into Gardevoir, into the other Gardevoir EX just yet. Will self-damage a little bit, and spreading out your energies is where Giratina V-Star might be safe next turn to do a sort of play. Maybe that's what Angel is trying to plan here, not taking knockouts, encouraging the Cresselia use to target down the Sableye, and then all of a sudden you respond with a knockout, a big knockout on the Gardevoir EX, and you might be able to slow down Ciaran a little bit. And with 5 minutes on the clock, definitely no game 3, but I feel like we could see a conclusion to this game, Jeremy.
Oh, definitely. Both of these players have been playing at a pretty good pace, and they know what's at stake. Already having tied twice this weekend. There's a counter catcher on the Radiant Greninja here. And Moonglow Reverse taking the knockout on that Sableye, so Radiant Greninja in the active does have an energy to retreat, but that hand is not doing much here. I guess you can power up a Sableye if there's a Psychic left in the deck.
Very surprised, honestly, at that use of the counter catcher. It does prevent the Comfey from coming up and giving Angel an extra card, but I feel like Angel getting an extra card is way less valuable than you having the resource of the counter catcher. Ciaran does play 2 copies along with a boss's orders, but if you're potentially planning to win this game, or at least if the Giratina V-Star goes down at some point, that's a big threat gone.
And with the Mirage Gate played here, just charges up the Radiant Greninja. So we're going to see a Moonlight Shuriken, no Manaphy on the bench for Ciaran. So you will be able to take the knockout on the Curlia and that Shining Arcana Gardevoir that's already damaged on the bench. Angel has a Manaphy of his own. Try to prevent maybe some Scream Tail shenanigans later on. And now down to 2 prize cards. That's just 1 Star Requiem on that Gardevoir EX.
Not only preventing Scream Tail, also you are leaving Arena Greninja in the active spot. So even though there's only 1 target for Moonlight Shuriken, you never know where a Mew EX could come in, right? Now, if there is a Mew EX, then a Boss K on the Giratina V-Star could be impactful. The free bench space, the freed up bench space for Angel now means there's a second Giratina V hitting play, and if Angel can find the combination of Mirage Gate and Boss's Orders, we could see him win this game too.
That'd definitely be beneficial for Angel there. Ciaran starting off his turn with a level ball, finds a Ralts. Just thinning the deck out as much as you can. You've got quite a grip of cards.
Yeah, now, do think we're definitely going to see another Moonclaw reverse to knock out the Comfey. Or, I guess, we could see a knockout on the Giratina V-Star to put Ciaran down to 2 cards. It doesn't change what Angel needs to win the game, but with 1 Giratina V-Star Lasso and the other, in the discard pile, maybe getting that Giratina V-Star combination will be really, really difficult. And with 4 cards in hand and no counter catcher available, it's actually not looking very likely that Angel can pull off this humongous combo. And this is where the early game choices, the Boss's Orders, the Mirage Gate hitting the Lost Zone, which we did just see Ciaran take note of, right, could come into play and make it very difficult for Angel to close out this game.
Well, there is a retreat of that Cresselia to the Gardevoir, fully powered up with enough to take the knockout on this Giratina V-Star. Going to play a card to just thin the hand down a little bit in preparation of something like Roxanne or Iono.
Now, benching the Zacian B, there's no difference between the Zacian or the Gardevoir getting KO'd by the Giratina V-Star attack, so no threat in doing that. Chooses not to bench the Greninja, which I think I wouldn't mind seeing with no counter catcher play available this upcoming turn. But Angel, can he close the game out here, Jeremy?
Well, Flower selecting, gets rid of counter catcher. That's not really going to help. Jet Energy is a way to just dig further. Super Rod found.
Super Rod found. Switch card in hand, but no Boss's Orders, no Mirage Gate, and no Giratina V-Star. Is there even a Mirage Gate left? I'm not sure.
There's at least one.
There's at least one? Because there were 2 played already. There was 1 in Lost One, I'm pretty sure. So I think there's only 1 left.
Yeah. It's at least one.
That is at least one. That is correct, for sure.
Technically correct. The best kind of correct.
All right, so we do see the Super Rod putting back resources, probably in preparation for this Colress, but can Angel even find a knockout this turn? Did he put the Cramorant back? I did not notice if he did.
It was a very fast Super Rod.
Well, we do see Sableye. That could be the attacker of choice for next turn. I think no matter what, you definitely want to try and get rid of the Shiny Arcana in the active spot in order to make sure that,
switch card to the Radiant Greninja, and that we're going to see an Iono here. Both players going to 2 cards now, and Angel needs a Psychic Energy to Lost Mind to take a knockout.
That gets a knockout, but how do you close out the game? And no Psychic Energies found.
Giratina V-Star was found. But a simple Boss's Orders from Ciaran would be able to seal up this match. It looks like time has been called as well.
Yep.
So Angel is turn 0, and then we're going to have +3 turns. Ciaran keeps looking at the cards, hoping they'll change. Is that a Boss's Orders?
I think he has
Oh my gosh.
Orders. Yeah, so Boss does require 1 more energy, and that's it to knock out the Giratina V-Star.
Oh, no, it was a Super
Boss.
Rod
There you go.
worker.
All
and
right.
Iono.
So it does have Shiny Carna. Maybe the Bosses was discarded earlier of an Ultra Ball somehow. I guess we're about to find out. Luminion is in the discard pile, so cannot Ultra Ball for it to find the Boss's Orders. We can Super Rod it back. and then use Shiny Arcana. That means there are 2 outs to the boss's order to win this game. And Ciaran definitely wants to win this game right here, because if he's not able to and gives another turn to Angel, like, Ciaran could even choose not to attack if he whiffs here, because then that way he doesn't activate the counter catcher for Angel, meaning it's easier to pull off this combination of cards, right? It's much harder to find Giratina V-Star enough and the Mirage Gate and the boss's orders if you can only play boss's orders as a supporter for turn, rather than finding Giratina V-Star and Mirage Gate if you can Colress or if you can Roxanne.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wow. Luminion found boss's orders, and there is the game. Ciaran, Farah now 9-1-2, won our round 12 here, and is looking to hopefully close it out and make top 8 yet again at LAIC.
Yet again, back-to-back top 8s for Ciaran are a possibility. 29 match points. If 35 is secure, then he needs to win 2 out of the next 3 rounds, which is a tall order, right? It's difficult to pull off that. However, you have a little margin for error, right? Only 66% of your rounds are needed. And I'm sure there will be players who still need to win 100% of the rounds left in order to make top 8. So I like where Ciaran is sitting.
And this was the start of game 2. A pretty stellar turn 1, getting 3 in the Lost Zone. Cramorant able to take a knockout on the Pokemon, and then just finding the Colress's experiments, but the Iono pushing him to the bottom of the deck. Ciaran was able to grab that Mirage Step and avoid a Moonlight Shuriken from Angel there, and basically get fully set up thanks to these refinements, both of the Shining Arcana Gardevoirs, and being able to really put in work with that Cresselia yet again. Moonglow Reverse is one of the best attacks against a lot of single prize decks like these Lost Zones.
Indeed, and this is why I love Cresselia. I feel like Jirachi came out and people are like, yes, now I finally have this anti-Sableye card. However, Cresselia is that anti-Sableye card. It's not like Gardevoir was auto-losing or had a horrible matchup against Lost Box decks before Jirachi came out. So Ciaran showing how you don't need Jirachi now. And he'll definitely not playing the Turbo Lost Box deck, therefore Sableye is a slightly later threat than normally against those sort of decks, but still, I don't think Jirachi is needed. I think Jirachi was very good for when it came out in Japan. However, now that we have the ancient and future Pokemon, it's just a little too late for Jirachi to really be that end-all be-all for Lost Box anymore.
Yeah, at least with us, we've seen it attack more times than its abilities being useful.
It's attacked more times than it has stopped damage counters from being placed, and Ciaran just won without needing Jirachi against that Sableye threat. Turns out if your Pokemon have high enough HP to survive, right, which is the case for Charizard decks, and I've seen a lot of Charizard decide to play Jirachi, I don't think you need it. And I'd rather have a second Manaphy, honestly, because to prevent the canceling Cologne plays, to prevent pricing issues, I would even prefer a second Manaphy in Gardevoir, and that's my personal choice, right? But I would prefer a second Manaphy over Jirachi at this point in the metagame. Maybe if something comes out that makes Lost Box super crazy again and super, super powerful,